I thought it'd be a nice idea to do a little video about my experience auditioning for Mountview. I auditioned for Mountview for the BA acting course on the 8th of December, which was a Saturday, and I've got a audition for RADA this Friday 14th, and then for Lambda on Monday the 17th. So I'll probably do videos for them as well if they're interesting enough. So the day started off, well, for me personally, biggest nightmare for me was getting there. I woke up at about 5 o'clock in the morning to get a train from Peterborough, and then to get from King's Cross to Blackfriars, and then from Blackfriars to Peckham. And getting to Peckham was probably the hardest bit. But once that was all done, it was fairly nice and relaxing. First thing I noticed was how many people were there, and I've seen different experiences of people saying that there was about 20 people, people saying there's about 150. For the BA acting course, there was about 100 of us. I think it was like 89, something like that. Just on that day. But that was nothing compared to the musical theatre course, because everyone else there was for the musical theatre course, and there must have been about 200, 300 people. So obviously that was, a little bit more daunting than I was expecting. Once we I thought to myself, like, I'm only here for the day, I'm going to just jump into it, get to know some people, have a bit of fun with it, because at the end of the day I've paid £46, I think it was, for this audition. I'm going to get my money's worth. And the people there were really nice. There was, like, from the staff to the other auditionees, there was no one that was a diva, no one was being unfriendly. It was all really kind of nice and sweet and chill. But there was a lot of people. And then they started off, because I knew that we'd be there for about 8 hours. So the day started off about 9:30. They split us into two groups. Half of us went one way, half of us went the other. I was number 43, I think. So I went in the second group. I was one of the first in the second group. I think they split around 40. And we went into one of the studios, and then they split us in half again and said that half of you are going off to do speeches and Q&A, and half of you doing the workshop. So if you don't know how the Mountview audition works, you do a 3-hour something movement and improvisation workshop. You do your 2 speeches, one classical, one contemporary, and then you have a Q&A with some third year and second year students. So we started off with a workshop, and it was really good. I've done the National Youth Theatre auditions, and they have a sort of similar workshop. So if you have done any of the NYT auditions, then you'll be quite familiar with what's going to happen. So we started off just doing some stretches and things like that, just kind of warming up. I said to someone that for every audition that I've ever done, or any workshop that I've been a part of, I've had to act like a dog. And we got through about an hour before, and I was like, yeah, okay, I'm not going to have to be a dog today, before we inevitably had to be a dog. So you will probably have to be a dog at some point in the day. And then with the movement workshop, there were 2 different. Sorry, that's my mother. I think she's just come home. So there were 2 different instructors or supervisors or whatever you call them, who were leading the session. We started off with the movement, and we did the stretches, and then it sort of built into it starts off with just kind of walking around the space, and then it builds into experimenting with the space more. The approach that I took was just to try new things, risk things, because obviously the first time I did something like that with the NYT, the first time I did their audition workshop, I had no idea what was going to happen, so I was really kind of holding back. But this time I knew what was coming, really, so I just threw myself into it, and I said, right, I'm just going to experiment with different things. And it was fun. It was really good, and that's the good thing about Mountview, I think, is that you get your money's worth. Even if you don't get through, you do get your money's worth. So after that, we we kept kind of building into different things, and kind of you're encouraged to use the other people in the room as well, not to dominate, not to kind of hog the stage or anything, but to use other people and interact with them and try new things with them. So that's something that I was kind of focusing on, not just kind of doing my own thing. Another thing, I'm losing track. Oh, we did some ball games. Completely irrelevant, but yeah, we did a few ball games. But once the movement was done, we moved on to the improvisation part of the workshop. I'm sure I can hear someone in the house. That will probably be my mother. I'll be back. So where was I? We started off with just, oh god, I can't remember how it started. That's bad. This was literally like 5 days ago, and I can't remember how it started. I've kind of left this video a bit late to film it. Oh, we started with being a dog. and we were put into pairs. I think there was 1-3, but like mostly put into pairs. And then my partner was, unfortunately she was quite ill, so she went off a couple times to, you know, like go be ill. So yeah, after that we moved on to a exercise where we were in our groups. I was in a 3, and it was a sixth form college, and we were given certain situations and we had to just go with it. We had a little bit of time to figure out the pretext, figure out the background, and I think we were given a little slip of paper. Our slip was that one of us was in an abusive relationship, and the other one, or in our group, other two, were trying to get them to talk about it. And I was the one who was in the abusive relationship, and we just went with the process of just asking each other questions like, how long have we known each other, like what subjects are you taking at school, how's things at home, like, so that you weren't kind of suggesting things and you weren't kind of dominating topics or planning too much, but you were just getting a feel of what your characters were like. I think we all left the room and we just had to come in, sit down anywhere in this space that we'd set up and just act. And then every like 5-10 minutes the instructor would stop us and then pick out different groups and say, right, carry on, and say like, right, one at a time, we're just going to watch what you do. And the instructor was so lovely and so kind of calming and comforting that there was no sort of pressure. It was just nice to kind of show other people what you've been exploring in your own little group, and everyone else who, all the other pairs, they had different things. There was one, I think one of them's mum was her sister or something like that. One of them was ill, things like that, all different situations. And there were none that really stood out to me as being bad. I think they were all, it all seemed quite equally weighted. There wasn't anyone who I thought like, why are you auditioning for drama school? Everyone looked like they kind of knew what they were doing and knew what they wanted and could fit in that room, which was really nice to see. So after the after the improvisation workshop, we had lunch. We just sat in the studio for a bit, and then after lunch was the speeches first for us, because then our group of 20 was split into 2 groups of 10. 10 of us went to do the speeches, and then the other 10 went to do the Q&A, and then we'd swap over. And the speeches was definitely I mean, obviously for most people would be the most nerve-wracking bit. Not in the sense that it was particularly scary or daunting, or like I felt prepared, but there was no sort of chat, no sort of interaction between you and the professor who'd be watching your speeches. You literally got up, said your name, said where you're from, said what speech you were doing, and off you went. And there was no applause, we weren't allowed to applaud, and that was it. We just went through one by one. I was second to go both times. We started with the classical and then we did the contemporary. For my classical speech I did Bassanio from The Merchant of Venice, and then for my contemporary I did Danny's monologue from Wasted by Kate Tempest. I wasn't a huge fan of my classical. I prefer the more dramatic monologues, but I wanted to do something that could show off a little bit of contrast, because Danny's monologue from Wasted is quite... there's a lot to explore with it, and it's quite dramatic, whereas The Merchant of Venice was one of the comedies, so I wanted that little bit of contrast to it. And I think in terms of the performance they went fairly well. I don't think it was the best thing I've ever done, but it wasn't the worst by any stretch. Like, I think there was two people that they said, can you get up and we'll just direct you a little bit and do your monologue slightly differently, and they said it means nothing, and I believe them. I don't think it really has that much. I don't think they pick people based on how well or bad you're doing. I think they just want to monitor how you respond to the direction. So once that was done, we left, and then we went and did the Q&A, and the Q&A was nothing to it. It was just for us to ask students questions. We weren't being judged at all. It was just 2 third years and 1 second year, I believe, and they just answered loads of questions. And if you've got any questions on the day, then you will get a chance to get them answered, because we were in that room for about 2 hours maybe, just asking questions. And there were times when we were literally just walking around bored, because we couldn't go downstairs until they were ready for us, but we hadn't got any more questions to ask. Like, there was about 30 of us in the room and everyone had asked all the questions they wanted to, so you will have plenty of time to ask any sort of questions you want. After that we went back into the first room that we were in. They took about 15 people away, I presume to give them recalls, and they said to the rest of us that we wouldn't be getting a recall, and then they kept half of us behind, including myself. Roughly half, I think. There's about 20 to 30 of us, and then said, although you weren't right on this occasion, we do think you've got the potential to train, so we'd like to offer you a free audition to the foundation course, and I will be doing that audition. But yeah, they said that was basically the process. They just said, we'll take half you, well, it was about 10-15 people away, and looking at the people, it wasn't easy to figure out whether they were the ones who got the recall or us, because obviously you only get to know so many people within like an 100 person group, and there wasn't anyone who particularly I thought, oh no, they won't get a recall, or particularly thought, oh yeah, they definitely will. And for the most part I wasn't really trying to judge it based on other people, because I know that, you know, like, one man's trash and you can't really judge how you feel about it compared to what an examiner might feel, because if my opinion was right, I'd be the one up there getting the recall, wouldn't I? So I just sort of prepared for the worst, so that even if I did get, like, so that no matter what happened, I wasn't disappointed too much. And I wasn't disappointed. I was really pleased to, because that was my first audition for any drama school. That was my first year of auditioning, and that was my first of the year. So I was really pleased to get an invite to the audition for the foundation course. And yeah, as I say, I got RADA on, well, tomorrow, and then Lambda next Monday. So I'll probably do another one of these for them, depending on how they go. But yeah, the main thing I kind of took from this was that just to have fun with it, because even if you don't get through, it's still the chance to work for 8 hours with some of the top teachers in the industry, and that, like, for 46 quid, that's not something you kind of turn your nose up at. And meet new people as well. Like, there was people there who would come all the way, like, this was in South London, and there were people who come all the way from Scotland, there were people who come from Romania, there's some people who just come from London, some people like myself from like Peterborough, some people from Isle of Man. So there's so many different people that you can get to know, and they're all so lovely. So yeah, it was a fairly enjoyable day. I hope this has been some use to someone. See how things go in the future.